This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. China's crude oil imports rose nearly 12% in May from a low base in a year earlier, although refiners were still battling high inventories with COVID-19 lockdowns and a slowing economy weighing on fuel demand last month. The world's top crude oil buyer imported 45.83 million tons last month, data from the General Administration of Customs showed on Thursday, equivalent to 10.79 million barrels per day (BPD). That compares to 10.5 million barrels of oil per day in April and to a 2021 average of 10.3 million barrels of oil per day. January to May imports were down 1.7% versus the same period last year at 217 million tons, or about 10.49 million barrels of oil per day.
Oil prices hovered near three-month highs on Thursday after parts of Shanghai imposed new COVID-19 lockdown measures, although China's stronger-than-expected exports in May offered a boost to the demand outlook. Brent crude futures for August dipped 14 cents or 0.1% to $123.44 a barrel at 10:45 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for July was at $121.88 a barrel, down 23 cents or 0.2%. China's May exports jumped 16.9% from a year earlier as easing COVID curbs allowed some factories to restart, the fastest growth since January this year and more than double analysts' expectations.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday will lay out a pitch to leaders from the Americas for an environmentally friendly economic partnership as he gears up for a first formal encounter with his Brazilian counterpart, a noted climate change skeptic. Biden will meet Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro at the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles, a gathering intended to underline renewed U.S. commitment to Latin America after years of comparative neglect under the former Trump administration. Pledging to help economies grow, from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down, at the summit's opening, Biden said renewable energy investment would be central to it.
Iran expects an oil cargo confiscated by Greece to be returned in full, the semi-official Tasnim news agency reported. Tehran's ambassador to Athens is saying on Thursday, following a Greek court ruling quashing the original decision to confiscate it. The case arose when Greece in April impounded the Iranian-flagged Lana, formerly Pegasus, with 19 Russian crew members on board, near the island of Evia due to European Union sanctions. The ship was released due to complications over its ownership. The United States in May confiscated part of the Iranian oil cargo on board, transferring it to another ship, following the initial Greek court ruling.
Next, we have the top news in metal markets.
China's iron ore imports rose 3% in May from the same month a year earlier, customs data showed on Thursday, after disruptions to shipments by major suppliers eased. The world's top iron ore consumer brought in 92.52 million tons last month, up from 89.79 million tons in May 2021, the General Administration of Customs said. Imports of the steel-making ingredient had slipped in recent months, as miners in Australia were hit by pandemic-induced labor shortages, while Brazil's Vale struggled with weather. In addition, war has suspended exports from smaller suppliers Ukraine and Russia.
Gold inched lower on Thursday, pressured by elevated U.S. Treasury yields as the focus turned to U.S. inflation data for the Federal Reserve's interest rate hike plan after the European Central Bank signaled a July increase. The ECB said it will end bond buys on July 1, then raise rates by 25 basis points later that month. It will hike again in September and may opt for a bigger move then if the inflation outlook fails to improve. Spot gold fell 0.3% to $1,847.59 per ounce by 12:49 GMT, little changed after the ECB decision. U.S. gold futures shed 0.3% to $1,850. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Farm Office France Agri on Thursday lowered its forecast for French soft wheat exports outside the European Union this season for a third month in a row, saying high prices due to the war in Ukraine had curbed international demand. French soft wheat exports to non-EU destinations in the 2021-22 season that ends on June 30 are now expected at 9.1 million tons, down from 9.25 million projected in May, France Agri said in a cereal supply and demand update. European wheat futures surged to a record high following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has blocked millions of tons of grain. Prices have fallen back but remain nearly double their level a year ago.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.